Hey friends, your old pal Barkey J Dog here, back with another movie review. This time, we're taking a look at mad scientists. Now, a mad scientist shrinking people is not anything new, and we've seen the camera tricks with miniature people a bunch of times. The Incredible Shrinking Man, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, Land of the Giants, and don't forget the Bride of Frankenstein, where Dr. Pretorius has miniature people. There was a spy show called World of Giants from 1959, where a spy gets shrunk down to 6 inches tall and helps solve crimes and stop enemy agents and stuff. An episode of the animated Star Trek had the crew shrinking, and of course, there was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and all of its innumerable sequels. There's lots of these kind of things. Sometimes, though, it's best to have a mad scientist in charge. So this time, we're talking about Dr. Cyclops from 1940. Our story goes like this. One day, a team of scientists trek into the South American jungle to track down Kojak. This guy, Dr. Thorkel, he's kind of notorious for being a jerk, but brilliant at sciencing the science. He's asked this professor to visit him because he needs the prof's help to science some stuff. But after he gets the answers he wanted, later the same day, he tells them to go home. Naturally, they don't like that idea because they came all that way to see him and want to know what it's all about. Well, turns out Kojak has a secret. He's discovered an ultra-pure, ultra-powerful deposit of radium, and he's using it for mad science. He's created a shrink ray, which he connives to turn on our hero. Now they know how Jack felt when the giant came after him. They have to somehow stop Dr. Kojak, but they're all small and in the middle of the jungle where everything is out to end them, especially the mad scientist. Can our heroes defeat Professor Kojak? Will they find a way to return to normal size? And why does this poor guy have to wear a diaper? In our cast, we have Albert Dekker as the villain, Dr. Cyclops, or more properly, Dr. Thorkel. Dekker is probably the biggest name brand in this, and he's good as the bad guy. Dekker was in lots of stuff over his long career, such as Gentleman's Agreement, The Wild Bunch, and 2 classic film noirs, Kiss Me Deadly and The Killers. He also appears in a Gamera movie, believe it or not. He plays the Secretary of Defense in Gamera the Invincible. Thomas Coley makes his film debut in his one and only film as the heroic geologist Bill Stockton. I swear, he reminded me of this guy, John Dahl from Rope and a bunch of other movies. I thought it was him, but no. Coley was kind of a low-rent version of Dahl. He's passable in this, but nothing to write home about. After Dr. Cyclops, he went on to do TV for the rest of his career. Janice Logan is the love interest here, Mary. Again, nothing to write home about. She's only made 6 pictures and then gave it up. Now, Charles Halton was a different story. He plays the scientist in charge of the expedition, Dr. Bullfinch, and he had a very long career, appearing in Foreign Correspondent, To Be or Not to Be, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Friendly Persuasion, the 1954 version of A Star is Born, The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer, It's a Wonderful Life, just on and on. He also worked a lot in TV. Paul Fix appears for like 2 minutes in the opening scene as the hapless Dr. Mendoza. Fix was a longtime character actor in many westerns and as Micah Torrance, the town marshal, on the TV series The Rifleman with Chuck Connors. Also appearing briefly, we have Frank Reicher as Professor Kendall. He was the ship captain in King Kong and Son of Kong. He also appears in Superman and the Mole Men. Finally, we have Victor Killian as the mule train owner, Steve Baker, a very familiar face. Killian was in tons of character parts in his career. Later in life, he appeared on TV in one-off roles on several sitcoms like The Jeffersons, The Brady Bunch, and All in the Family. Comic relief is supplied by Pedro, played by Western character actor Frank Yaconelli. One of the things that sets this movie apart were the two men behind it, producer Merian C. Cooper and director Ernest B. Schoedsack. They were the team behind King Kong, Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young. They also worked on two fascinating documentary-style films, Chang, a drama of the wilderness, where a hapless family has to deal with the dangers of native life in the jungles of Siam, including a killer tiger, and Grass, a picture I totally need to review sometime. That one is about a native tribe in Iran that has to travel across the mountains to lead their livestock to where they can get grass each year. Man, I love that picture. Anyway, Dr. Cyclops reminded me of one of my favorites we've talked about before, Dr. X from 1932, only not as good. It has Technicolor like Dr. X, and in fact it was the first sci-fi movie made in 3-strip Technicolor. And we get to see some appropriate mad scientist technology, as we did in Dr. X. The villain is interesting too, but the movie just falls strangely kind of flat. It's not bad at all, but not as good as it could have been otherwise. One weird thing was that the expedition here, they're all pretty chatty. That is, until they get shrunk. Then they hardly talk at all, even to each other. Thorkel does most of the talking then. And speaking of Thorkel, is he really a villain? Kind of, but we see him tired and exhausted most of the time from all the work he's doing. We can all feel that, am I right? He doesn't get much sleep and he overworks, so maybe he's a jerk, sure, but what if he's just not thinking clearly because of all the strain he puts himself under? We don't feel sorry for him, no, but would he have turned bad if he wasn't for working so hard? Anyway, it's a question I found myself asking. It was pretty cool to see how the shrunken people managed to evade and even fight the full-size bad guy in clever ways. The effects are really pretty good and sell the scenes more often than not. The effects earned Dr. Cyclops an Oscar nomination, and they were very good for their time. Kino Lorber has done right by the movie, giving us another fine transfer just like they did with Dr. X. This one is definitely worth a watch, just not quite as good as the idea deserved. Some of that is down to the flat cast aside from Dekker, Yaconelli, and Killian. Those three are pretty good, while the others are bland. The Technicolor treatment looks nice too. The Kino Lorber Blu-ray is the one to get and well worth picking up. Not sorry I did. All in all, this isn't a bad watch, so I'm giving Dr. Cyclops 2.5 paws up. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.